Well, hello, cord lovers. This is Mike from Cord Art, and I want to attempt a tutorial on this scorpion. If we just look at the scorpion for a moment, looking at the different knots, we have two arms that are made out of box knots. We have a rear body that's made out of a Virgo knot. We have a stopper knot for its poison sac, and the spike coming off it is just an end of the stopper knot. We have a stopper knot at the front for his head. You can see that we have five Turk's heads, and you need those pre-made really, like so. I've got one more to make in a minute. There's a series of cobra knots on this scorpion, and quite a bit of wire involved in it as well. There's no wire in the back of the body. The wire is actually in the arms, the claws and the legs. Now these legs are made out of pieces of wire, and then this very small stitching around the base of the legs, or the bottom of the legs, is a three-way cobra. I don't know if you could actually see just inside there how you got the cobra effect inside the leg. Perhaps I should have put the outside rather than having the bars across. So we've got the three-way cobra, got the ordinary cobra, that's the top of its legs, and then we've got a cobra going round off of each of the claws. Now there is a stopper knot at the base of each of the claws. That's the way that I actually started the knot going up the actual claw end. So that being said, I don't think I've missed anything out there. We need to make one more Turk's head to actually start what we're doing. Now throughout this tutorial I will be giving sizes and dimensions, but towards the end of it I hope to put a list of all the parts, because there are quite a few bits and pieces. So let's go straight into doing the Turk's head knot. I was having difficulty with this in the first instance, but the more you make, the easier it becomes. I've got a 3-foot piece of cord here. I did have a needle on it which has just fallen off as I picked it up, but that's back on now. So the end without the needle on it, 2 fingers, and there's many videos on this, so if this doesn't really get you, I mean, go onto YouTube and there's plenty, but place that across the 2 fingers, then back round and across, so you end up with a cross across those 2 fingers, come up between the 2 and then go out to the right again, which gives you a second cross. Now the reason I like doing it with a fid is because from that point on you've got to go under and over a few cords. So we need to go underneath that one, like so, and bring that slack through, like so. So that's pretty easy. I mean, we did a cross, a second cross, and then up through that bit there. We then turn our fingers round and look at the 2 cords going across the back. Now if we take the left hand cord and take it over the top of the right hand cord, which will give us that sort of effect. We then take the fid and go under this first one and over the second one. So we're under and over. pulling in that slack there. We've now got to concentrate on the base of this knot. Now those two cords there need to be slightly split, like so, and then we're going to go under that one and over the next. I don't know if you see that, but that's the way we do it. Under and then over to the left. So we've got that far. We twist round again. I can let go of this cord now, and what we're going to do is follow this standing end. So can you actually see how it goes underneath that cord? With our fid, we're going to follow that one now. Nothing difficult about this. So there we go, through like so. Bring in the slack. Follow it again, under that one, over that central one, and we'll come out just about there. Got a bit of twist there, but that's okay. We're looking now to follow it still to the left, keeping it to the left, this one to the left, underneath the next one, the same as this left hand one does, down through, taking the twist out as we go. Right, we can actually relax those fingers now and hold on to the whole thing. Now we're still following this cord, keeping it to our left. So we're just doubling up on it. So we're up through there, following this cord, keeping it to the left. So it goes underneath that one. Then travels across two. So we're going to travel across two. It bends round slightly to the left, and we're going to keep it on our left as we go underneath that one, like this one does. Bring that up to there. Just twist that bit of twist out. It's then going over the top of two. Keep this one to the left still. So we go over the top of these two, under that one, because it's going under one. So under that one, over two again, because it's going over two, underneath these two, like so. So what we've done is doubled this one up all the way. We're just coming up to finishing that double shortly. So then we go over these two, because this one's going over these two, under those two, over those two, and under those two. Now we've got to finish this knot, so the idea is that this goes down through that one hole. We don't want to continue anymore because there's already two there. We don't want to go three. The idea is just to have two cords. So we just gain a little bit by pulling it down through that hole, out through the top, and then we can remove the fid. So there we are. Now we need somewhere to store that, because I mean, as I said, we'll need 5 for this project. So I've just got a piece of pipe. I'll put it onto the pipe. Now we could leave it like that, but it makes life a little bit easier if we've got it tightened up a bit smaller. I know that the size of this pipe is about the same size as the body, and we're going to actually slide one over the top of the body. So if I've got this diameter, just a bit of old pipe I found somewhere, it's the same for the box arms. This will just slide over if it's this diameter, and as I say, that's the same with the 3 for the body. So we'll put that to one side. Now you can see it's actually starting to wrap itself around the pipe to the dimensions that will be more or less the same as what I need for the Scorpion. I only intend on taking the slack out of this once. I think on these I've taken the slack out twice, but there is no need. Now there's the bottom end, so we just pull it through and we've got our knot ready for use. And just finish that end off with a bit of heat. So that's the first part of this video. Now let's think about this. This project is going to be in all red and black. Now, how do we get this effect, this arch effect on the Vigo knot? It's much similar to one of my last videos when I made an elephant's trunk. But we will go through the process. Now what I'm actually needing is a piece of 2mm cord to make the core that goes through this knot. We need to make a stopper knot on it. So I believe that this piece of cord is 24 inches long. I've mounted the ends over and it's 2mm cord. Now we need a stopper knot. I've seen stopper knots done 2 or 3 different ways, but I find that this way is the easiest. Just place it over the center finger. Make sure it's in the center of the actual cord. Grab hold of this one, twist it around the thumb like so. Yeah. Place that loop then over the opposite cord. Pull a bit of slack, and this is quite a flexible cord, so pull a bit of slack up through there. Can you actually see that? So I'll just do that again. I've gone round my thumb from underneath over the top, pulled that off, keeping it pinched with my fingers, twisted it so that this actually is being restrained by this one, pulled some slack out the center like so. Then we take the one that we pulled the slack up on, round underneath this one, put it straight across the circle, but underneath, so it's going over, under, over. And then when you actually start to tighten, you see that you've got this, I think it's called a Paracord knot. Can you see the diamond in the middle? That's why it's also, the whole knot is called a diamond knot. So if I just get that into focus, like so, we've got a diamond shape in the middle, and I'm actually pulling most of the slack out of this knot because I want to use these bits of cord. I won't need the loop. So we've got this far. We've got a small diamond shape inside this knot. Now you've got one cord coming out either side. This one has got to go right the way. Now the loop that we got our finger through, this one's got to go around this end and up through the center. So what I'm going to do now is go right the way round, past this piece of cord that goes around my finger, and come up through that diamond shape. And just bring some of the slack up through there. Goes round like so. Now this one does the opposite. It comes underneath, but it goes round the part that was round my finger. So it travels this side and then up through the diamond shape. And we pull that up through. Grab hold of both of those that's come through the diamond shape. Got our finger there still. Now we just got to tease it into position. Slowly but surely we can tease that into position. Now having in mind that was 24 inches, we can afford to lose a little bit in the loop. So we're just teasing that nicely, slowly, gently, not too much. Give it a bit of a roll and you can see it's taken that shape that's required. Give it a bit of a pull here and there, not too much, because as you can see there, there's a loop, a slack in there, so we're going to pull that through the knot now, that loop. It's a thin cord for my big fingers, but it's doable. I don't think it's that one. Right, so I think it's that one. Yep. That's better. And as you can see, we've got our small knot now. I would have liked this loop smaller, but it's going to come off anyway, so I'm happy with that being the poison sac, i.e. that bit there. Yeah? So, well, we don't take the whole of that off. I'm glad I stopped myself short then. I was just about to cut it off. In fact, what we'll do is we'll leave that as it is for the moment. When it comes to it, we'll cut one of those off, cut it short, melt it, and then that will be the stinger. Yeah. So we've got our stopper knot there. We've got a good amount of cord here. Now, again, like the elephant's trunk, I need a really tight Virgo knot so that it curves on its own. And the reason that it's curving is because it's a tight knot, and this is pulling the whole thing down. So let's start our Virgo knot. We need 10 feet of cord. We'll find the center, if I can. On the two ends, and we might get somewhere close to finding the center. Right, so there's our center. Again, we're going to do much similar to what we did with my elephant's trunk, but you might not have seen that video, so I'll repeat. So we're going to place that around the base of the knot. You could think, well, I could make a bigger poison sac by using 550 cord rather than this 2mm. It's an option. I don't know quite if what it would look like because I haven't done it that way before. So we make sure we've got it nice and tight around the knot, around those two knot ends from the actual stopper knot. So we've just wrapped it round. I'm going to place a pin now through the black and then through the reds. Now, because it's only 2mm cord, it's quite difficult to get the whole pin where you want it, but if you take your time, I think that might be it. Like so. We've certainly caught hold of one of the cords. Let me just make sure see if I can get hold of both of them. I think we got both of them this time, or none of them. No, I think we got both of them. So what we're going to do is carry on now, tying our Virgo knot down this core, this twin core. And the way we do that, it'd be probably a little bit more difficult than what I've done before, because 10 feet of cord is quite a hefty piece of cord, but let's have a go anyway. So we're going to make a loop coming down on the left hand strand, just like so. And then take the right hand cord over the top so that we've got them crossing just on top of the cord. We're going to make sure that we have a nice entry point between those two red cords. And what we're going to do is take our right hand cord and come up through those standing ends there, the core. And as we do so, we form a second loop. Now the idea is to go back through the core, down through here, and then up through that loop that we've just made. Like so. Just not too tight, but just there, like so. So we've tied a knot on that side. Now we're going to do the same on the other side. So we take the left hand working end, come up through the core, making that same loop on the left hand side, like so. We're going to take the left hand working end down through the core and back up through that loop we've just made. And tighten that one up. Yeah. Right, so we've pulled up, then we've ended up with these two loops at the top. We want to get rid of those two loops at the top. The way we do that, to get rid of this one on the right, we go to the left knot that we just tied and pull that spare loop down through. Yeah? We've then got to bring that slack up through the knot, not too easy to see with this black, and then pull down on the working end. I've not pulled all the slack out yet. Again, to get rid of this loop on this side, we're going to go to this loop down here and pull out some of the slack. That's like so. We're going to pull up through the knot, the slack that's still available underneath the knot. Grab hold of the right working end and come down like so. I'm going to pull our core, you can see that we're still on line, but we need to be tighter. So we'll just give the working ends a little bit of a pull down. Right, I need to get more of that slack out of the knot. So again, what we'll do is get hold of the snipe nose pliers, try and get some more of this loop right up against the stopper knot through here, like so. Come to the knot just there and bring the slack up through. Then the working end we can pull down. Same again here, we're going to pull on this cord to get the slack out of the top of the loop near the stopper knot. So we'll bring the slack out through there, bring the slack that we've now got here up through the knot by twisting it out of there, and then take it down through the left hand working end. Give it a bit of a pull on the core. I think we can probably take a bit more up through there. Or maybe not just yet. So we can then remove the pin so that we don't do ourselves a mischief. And we can go to the second part of the knot. So again, left hand side looping round over the core, right hand side looping over the left hand side, crossing on the core, giving us that heart shape, yeah, crossed over on the core. Right hand working end, up through the centre of the core, forming that loop again. There's the loop, like so. We now want to go back down through that core and up through that loop that we've just made, just on the outside of that standing end there. Pull out a bit of the slack in that one, so we've got that holding there. Now the right hand side, sorry, the left hand side will be doing the same. Get over the left hand working end, come up through the core, in doing so we form that loop here. There's that loop there. Go down through the core on the outside of the crossover just here, or below the crossover, and then out through that loop we've just made, taking some of the slack. And this is a bit fiddly because we're actually working with two different thicknesses of cord, i.e. the 2mm and the 4mm. But I've just pushed that up there now by pulling on these two cords here, and you can see that we have two loops there. Now we've got to pull those two loops out. So if we come down to the right hand side of this double pair just here, we can take out this loop here. like so. Give it a good old pull, and then these two, the slack comes up through the knot like so, and then you can pull it all through on the right hand working end. We just give those core a little bit more pull. Now you can see that we've done away with that loop, that end, pulled it through, and then pulled it through, and then pulled the slack through with the working end. We're going to do exactly the same with this loop here. We're going to pull it through from this side down here, pull out the slack, then comes up through this central part of the knot, and then you pull all the slack down with the left hand working there. Now we push up again, hides the red in the middle. I'm still not happy with how tight that is. I'm sure that I can get it a bit tighter by using my grips. Again with this one, I'm sure I can get a bit more on it. So that's 2 knots tied on the Virgo. If we count up how many are on this one by going to the back, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So we want 18 knots. Now I don't intend on doing all of that on film. So what I'll do is carry on now, do those extra 16 that I need on this, and I'll come back to you. Well, there we have it. I've travelled down that core. You can see that the core's disappeared now. What I've done is come down 18 knots, got it to the tension that I want it, tied those 2 core strands into a knot and melted them. Hence, this stays the shape I want it to. We've still got about a foot left on each of these blacks working ends. Now they're going to be what we actually fit this to the next part 2. So we'll just put this to one side for the moment and go on to the claw arms, or the arms for the claws. So what do we need for that? Need a piece of wire 12 inches long. I've bent it over so that 6 inches goes to there and 6 inches goes to there. That is the shape that we want to actually make the arms. One arm this side, one arm that side. We need it slightly back open again because I want to put a piece of 550 gutted cord over that. So this is just longer than a foot long. Yeah, I've melted one end so as it restricts it. If we just slide this down around, you'll see that it will actually go. A bit fiddly. I felt that this part needed to be red. Not that you see much of it once we've finished. So we're up to the end on this part now. Just bring this part through, take a bit more slack through, and just melt that one over. That's good. Now we'll reform our shape, as I say. Let me just measure that, because I've got a feeling I might be giving you a duff deal. Yeah, it's 3 inches. So it was 12 inches all told. There's 6 inches along this main piece. And then I've bent 3 inches and 3 inches. So what we've got now is this. Now I found that this is the hardest part of making this scorpion. But what we've got to do now is travel from the centre outwards and the centre outwards again, doing a box knot. Now, box knot isn't particularly difficult. It's just the start point that we need. And I do want them to be separated because I want to join the tail end to this. And it's got to be able to travel down through the 2 sections I'm going to make now. So we'll start off with coming from the centre outwards with the box knot. I'll get a few into it and stop and then come back to you, probably with the other one done as well. The idea is to travel from here outwards, but we leave just a small amount of a hole at the end there, because our claw is going to be going through that part. So let's see if we can actually start a box knot. I've got 2 pieces of cord here, both 3 feet long. I've found that if you place these at the centre, the one that goes just inside first, there, will be the colour that goes along the arm. So we'll follow it up with the black. So, as I say, this is a little bit difficult to start off, but once it's started, it's pretty easy. So what have we got there? We've got me holding all 4 cords out like so. Now the box knot, as I say, is quite easy. You actually come over with the black, over with the black. We now want to retain this black, so we're going to go over the top of that one, this one here, and down through the loop. This one is going to do the opposite. It's going to come this way. So that's come over there. We're going to retain this one by going over the top of it and through there. Now this is the most important part of the knot, getting it started. Right, so say a bit fiddly, but it is getting there. Trying to do is come along with this knot. I'm hoping that you can actually see that we've got the base of the knot right in the center there. And now the idea is to travel upwards. So hopefully I've got this right. We're going to come over and the other side of the wire. So you've got a loop there and a loop here. This one is going to restrict this and come through the loop. This one is going to restrict this red and go down through the loop. Again, we're going to have a loop, red loop to the back of the wires, a red loop to the front of the wires. This black one now going to go over this one, restricting it and going through the loop. And vice versa with this black one, restricting this red one and coming through the loop. Tighten up. Must admit, it's going through my mind at the moment, will I get the effect that I want or what I've got before? I'm hopeful. But if I don't, I'll stop the video and start again and see what happens. It's starting to look a bit like a mess, to be quite honest. So let's see if we can tighten it up and get some sort of semblance of what I need. Not sure if we're getting there at the moment, but we'll see. Early days. I'll do a couple more and make sure that we're getting what I'm after. So again, loop over that way behind the wire with the red, loop over that way in front of the wire. This one, don't take it through that loop there. We're going to restrict that core there and come down through this loop. Again with this one, we're going to restrict this one and down through that loop. And with a bit of magic, it might turn out the direction I want it to go. They seem to be lining up a bit better now. Right, again, this loop at the back of the wire, and you can see that it's the cable that we've used at the back all the time. So a loop over the back from right to left, and then bring the left hand cord over to the right. We have two loops. This one, you can see, keeps to this side, and the back one here keeps to this side. So we're going over the top of that cord, restricting it, and then this one will come over this cord, restricting it, and through the loop. this isn't turning out quite as I wanted it. I wanted the red cords to be going along that way and the black the other way. Now I don't know whether I can actually twist it round slightly, which I think I can, and there we have it. So I've got the reds travelling along this loop. So what I'm going to do there is click off again, continue as far as I need to, probably do the other side with 2 more bits of 3-foot cord, and I'll come back to you. Well, welcome back. As you can see, I've got a little bit further with these 2 arms. Not come out exactly how I wanted them. I mean, if you look at the start point just there, I've got 2 cross stitches. I'd have preferred if one of those cross stitches went the other way, but on a good day that would happen, but this time it hasn't. So we've travelled out firstly this way with our box knot, and we've done 7 stitches, leaving a very small loop end there. So that's a loop of wire inside of the cord. I've cut and melted these. Just going to cut and melt these because I know people like to see things how they end up finished, but it's as simple as that. I mean, cut off each piece, get with a bit of spare, bit of heat on the side. Bit too hot, that one. Got a black finger. Same for the red. Doesn't matter about a little bit of damage around here because it's all going to be covered over with the Turk's knot. So you can afford to become a little bit heat crazy if you like. Occasionally I tend to sort of melt something that I didn't really want to, but that's okay. Small interruption there, so we cut that last one off. Just melt it back down to the body, and that's good. So we've got a little loop at this end and a little loop at this end. I've decided that this is going to be my top. That's the front, because this isn't quite as neat. We got one odd, I think it's the way we start the actual box knot. It's not always 100% that you're going to start off with the way you wanted it. I think I know what I did wrong there, but then again, if that's up against the body, it's going to have plenty of stuff behind it, like this Turk's head here. So I'm not too worried about that, but you get the general idea. Now we left those holes in the ends so that we can pass through a claw. Now I got to this point when I made the green and grey one and put the claws in. Any problem with that is I then couldn't get my Turk's heads on. So what I think I'll do is I'll offer the Turk's heads onto the arm first, i.e. we'll get a couple of the tighter ones. One, two. Put one on there, one on there for a little bit later. Now, I've got 2 pieces of 3-inch wire inside of 2mm stripped out cord. Now the idea is that we place that through that loop about halfway, do the same on the other side. And just shape that round till we're looking something like a claw. Like so. That's not too bad at all. We'll do the same with the other one. As I say, 3 inches long, covered in 2mm gutted cord. Now whether we can get that straight through or not, I don't know. So it does close up a fair bit. I mean, could use a fid if need be. Might have to. No, we're okay. Got that through. And again, we'll just put a bit of a loop on it so that it doesn't want to go anywhere straight away. There we go. Now obviously the next section is to tighten 2 of these up. What I like to do is tighten 1 up, 2 up, and then we'll sort the claws out. I'm going to do that offline, off the film, because it takes a bit of time, and I do realise how much time I'm talking at the moment. It's quite a bit. But just another thing before I go, I'll come back when I've tightened these up, and we'll see how we're going to go about fitting the tail end to these legs. I've just had another idea for the head. Now I want it to be like a Deadpool. If you notice on this one, I just did a diamond knot there. It didn't turn out too badly. It looks like a head and some sort of eyes stuck on it. But this is a Deadpool one. So what I've actually done there is tied a diamond knot, but with twin core. I'm not quite sure how to cut it yet. I think it's probably going to be, and you can see that I've got a couple of little bit of loop of black, so that it looks like some eyes. And I think that looks a little bit Deadpoolish myself. Not quite finished with that, but I just thought I'd introduce you to the change, or one of the changes that I'm making as I go along. I've got a few other ideas that I might change just slightly. I'm aware that these legs took me over a day to make, so I'll probably make those a little bit easier. We'll try something different rather than the 3-way cobra. I think we might end up doing different size cordage cobra wise on those, but we'll come back to that. So join me again shortly when I've actually tightened the 2 woggles, 1 each end, and what I'm looking for is to restrict those claws at the same time, but not sort of go over the top too much. Just keep them in the right position, and I'll come back to you then. Well, welcome back. This is how far we've got since I last was filming. I've put 2 of the Turk's heads on the end, got them really tight with the old grips. They just go over the ends, but they tend to keep the claws in position. Now I'm not going to do the claws just yet. I'll just show you that I've cut 4 1-inch 550 pieces of cord and gutted them. They will actually, before we start to do our cobra along here, go onto each one of those. The reason that I want that piece on there is because it makes it a bit thicker towards this end, then it goes thinner. So that's the idea of that one. We've now got to fit the tail to the front of the beast. I've worked out a way of doing that without way of doing it. I just wanted to return back to this head. Now, since I last showed the head, which is, as I say, a twin core diamond knot. Now I intend on putting a couple of eyes like so onto the head, giving it that Deadpool sort of look. I've got to line it up, but that's the general idea. So we might have a little bit of white inside the loops, because Deadpool has white inside of his eyes, so that's to come. I'll fiddle around with that later. But the reason I wanted to return to the head now, while we're fitting the main two parts together, is that I have to fit this head at the same time. So we'll take its eyes off for the second. Now the idea is that I know that on this Scorpion, underneath this back Turk's head is the main join. Now I've measured that from the centre of that Turk's head to the back of these arms is 1.5 inches. So what I've got to do is get this an 1.5 inches away from, let's get you on screen, 1 inch away from the 1.5 inches away from the body. So the idea of that is to wrap both bits round. Now where I've worked this out slightly, nothing's going to come off here now because of the Turk's heads. These come from bottom, front, up through, and we pull them into the gap between the two arms. But I've got to get the distance right with regards to tying a cobra along here. In fact, it would be a king cobra when I've finished. I'll bring it in just a smidgen, because I don't want this join showing at the back of the Turk's head. I think we're just about right there. So we'll give that a bit of a, what I call a mullering, with regards to pulling it deep into the gap between the two. Right, now the head, it did have 4 strands coming out this front end. I cut them off, melted them, and then I've stuck, because there was 4 white dots, I've got a little kiddie's ink printer here, and I've stuck that inside there so it goes red. I might give it another go later on, because there's a bit of white showing through there, but it gives it a little bit of an alien look at the moment, which I'm quite pleased about. But coming back to the head, I've also cut these, so I've cut those 4 off. I've cut 2 off here, which won't be seen. So I'm not too worried about those 2 white bits there. And I've got 2, hopefully, which will come again around the black, which I've put through the centre, and below it, so that we got the head something like that. So we've got a red going top and bottom. There's the one at the bottom, there's one at the top, and it comes short of the body. Now the idea with this now is to tie a cobra from the front to the back, like so. What we'll do is we'll make a loop over, we go over the top of that one, up through the loop, and hopefully we got somewhere the first stitch of our cobra just here. once we've got it sighted, we can start to pull it around a little bit so that it doesn't look as bad as it might do. I think what I'm going to do, take advantage of this position now, and whilst I've got that pretty tight, if I actually get the grips and pull on those two reds about equal distance, it'll give us a better look. I'm quite happy with that. No, they're not. It's looking good still. Starting to get where I want to be with it now. It's starting to come together. So there we have it. Bit of a lumpy join just here. But if I measure out these three, this one should actually come just there. Right. I'm just having a thought now whether, because that's so thin along there, whether I should actually grab hold of a piece of black and do another cobra along there to thicken it up. So, I mean, I don't want the front part of the body thinner than the back. I think we'd be okay, but I'd rather be sure. So I'm going to click off there for a second. I'm going to test to see if I need another covering of cobra along this section here. But as you can see, it's starting to come together quite nicely. The head is, I think, quite good. Nice size. So one thing that I do like doing is something different on each piece of, or each project I do. I don't mind making lots of scorpions, but as long as I can improve them each time. So I'll play around with this part of the body just here, this 1.5 inches of body here. After I've played around with that, I'll be placing the 3 Turk's heads over the top of the tail and down to the front of the body, and I'm going to tighten those 3 up. Well, hi there from Cord Art. Just to bring you up to speed on where we've gone with things since I last clicked off. I did do a second row of cobra underneath these Turk's knots. It's bordered out quite thick, but they've just about covered everything I wanted it to cover. You might see an addition there of yet another Turk's head, and I thought I'd do this black Turk's head and put it on because it wasn't as rigid as I wanted it to be. This has brought things all back together again. Executive decision, you might say. So we'll just shift him out the way and we'll put him over there. Now what we've got to do is think about the legs. Now the legs are made out of wire and gutted 2mm cord. Now they're 6 inches long, the actual pieces of wire, so we need 1, 2, 3, 4. These 3 have actually been done. They've been gutted. The cord is 7 inches long. The reason that I wanted another inch was because it gives me a nice piece of flex on the end that I can put onto a needle and then put the needle through the base of the Turk's heads. Now I'll just run through what we've done with the wire and also the 2mm thread. The idea is to gut it, so we'll pull those bits out. I'll melt over one end, and then the idea is to feed the wire down through. Started. I tend to keep twisting it and backwards and forwardsing a little bit, because sometimes it catches inside. The sharp edge of the wire could quite easily, and does quite often, catch on the inside of the gutted cord. But if you take a bit of time, it's achievable. And I think we're just about there now. Just melt that one over to retain the wire. So now we've got 4 legs, and obviously when we actually place them on here, we'll have 4 this side and 4 that side. Now where they're placed is really down to how wide that body is. I'm going to click off again in a minute, because I'm going to actually find the ultimate point and divide it up into 4, probably 1 to the front of that knot, 1 to the rear of that knot, and again front and rear of those knots. I haven't tied these extremely tight for the fact that I've got to get these through. So I'll click off there. I'll come back to you shortly. Oh, hi, welcome back. Now I've picked out a route through these Turk's heads for my legs. I stuck with sort of bottom with the head in the upward position, bottom of the first Turk's head, top of the second, bottom of the second, and then top of the third. Measured out that we've got from the centre 3 inches each side. I have just touched them with a touch of super glue just to hold them in place so they don't slip. Now what we've got to decide is how we're going to decorate those legs. As I said before, earlier on in this video, I painstakingly, with this one, did the 3-way cobra on the legs. It's very nice if you've got the time. I don't think everybody has, and I'll come back to that method at some point. But what I think I'm going to do is use a cobra on each of the legs, but some of this very thin stuff, this black micro cord, which is 1.18. So what I intend on doing is travelling down the whole of the leg, each of the 8 legs. With the claws, as I said, I've got 4 of these, so that they tie up a bit thicker. But again, I'm probably going to use this small micro cord on there first off. Then I think over the top of the thin micro cord on the legs, I will probably grab hold of my 2mm red and do about half of the leg from the body outwards in red cobra. Might be a little bit of red cobra after the black on there. That might work out quite good as well. I'll come back to you after I've had a go at these legs. I think most people know how to do a cobra. It can be a bit tricky when you've got lots of obstacles in the way, but I might just dip in halfway through and show you how I'm getting on. But until I get that far, I'll speak to you later. Well, welcome back to Cord Art. As you can see, this project has more or less been completed. I've left a few things so that we can go through as a final push to finishing the project. The eyes aren't actually glued in or anything, but they've been achieved by a couple of small pieces of 2mm black, and then with the inner of a piece of 550, I've tied two diamond knots, pushed them inside after just melting a very short piece of that 2mm black. As you can see, there's still a claw to be completed, and at the back here there's still a leg to be completed. The legs have come up quite well actually. What we've done there is travelled down the leg with some 1.18mm cord, just done a knot all the way down there. So I think perhaps we'll do the claw first, and the way we did that is, as I said, I cut a piece of 550 cord. I'm just going to mount over the edges so they don't fray. As you can see, it's just still whole. That's that one end, and this is about 1 inch long. And we're just going to push that over the top of that core there. That's turned out a bit long. No, that's okay. That's okay. Then what we need is a piece of that 1.8 to tie our cobra around. Now that piece is, I believe, 15 inches long. And the way I tend to do it is just tie a knot in the centre, just a 1/2 hitch to start with, like so. Grab hold of the ends and just diminish that until we can get it there. Now, the cobra actually goes from top to bottom when we're tying, so I'm going to place that onto there and have the knot side of it just on the outside. Give it a bit of a pull. Then you inspect that knot. You can see that one comes under and one goes over. Well, the one that goes under, I want to start making that loop. Bring the other one over, start again. So we make a loop, like so. Come over the top of that working end, round the back of the claw, and give it a bit of a tighten. So that's one. Right, we're back online again now. So loop underneath, round the back of the claw. That looks a bit better. Right arm working line over the top of the claw, left around the back and over that one, up through. And that's our next knot. Does get a bit repetitive. I've done quite a lot of mileage on these legs and claws, and it takes it out of your hands a little bit with this very thin cord. but I can see the end is close. So I'd like to get this finished today. Now, when I started this, I intended it looking like the one just over here. None of mine look the same. I always change my mind halfway through and change things slightly. Yeah, I've got an extra Turk's head on the body of this one, but I think it was necessary. I've done the cobras slightly different on the legs, but again, you have to think about time as well. I mean, I can't afford to take a day to do the legs on a coat on one of these projects. So it's also a matter of finding out what works best and what's most feasible, and what looks good really. I'm not too unhappy with the way things are working out with this project. I must admit, I'm starting to think about my next project, and I always do. I work away and I'm thinking about my next project, and I've got an idea. I bought a few things the other day when I was at the shops, and only a few pounds it costs, but a very small polystyrene eggs, because it's coming up to Easter and the shops want you to make eggs, but I've got another use for those eggs. I fancy making what someone was talking about online the other day, and that was what they call a finger monkey, very small monkeys. And I've got this idea of making these monkeys so that they can just hang on your finger. I don't know why I want to make them, but I see it as a project, so that's probably the next one I'm going to do, some sort of finger monkey. And I think there's a lot of variations I could actually do then. So we've travelled up that now with the cobra. It's looking quite good. Got the red flowing through the black, so we'll just nip them off like so and so, and just heat them up so they don't come undone. Yeah, that one's okay. I like to burn on the right hand side rather than the left, because my eyesight's not so good on the left hand side, so I can line it up and just bring the heat in and dab it on. So that's looking good. Yeah, the eyes are still flopping about on pins, but I'll find a place for those in a minute. I intend on keeping these eyes. I don't intend on going into anything deeper than that. So what we got left now, we got just one leg to do. Now the legs are a bit monotonous, but we've got that 3-inch piece of wire there. That's 3 inches from the centre, so we're a bit short of 3 inches on the outside. Piece of wire, as you can see, it goes right the way through the back there, right the way through, covered in 2mm red. And I like that because you can see the red through the black, and then you can see the black through the red, which I think gives quite a nice effect. So what we've got to do is cover that leg with a cobra of black. Now the black is, again, what size was the black? I think, have a quick measure there. I think I know what it's, I think it's 30 inches. Yeah, 30 inches of black 1.18 cord. We start that again as the way we did with the claw, just a half hitch halfway down the cord. What we're going to do is put that over the top, but have the knot piece on the inside. Now we bring that right down tight to the base of that leg. Give it a good old tug, making sure that it is right at the base. and look to see which cord is looking natural to tie the next part of the knot. Right, I think we're in a position there. Now I can see that the left hand working end is coming up nicely and out of the knot. So we'll use that first. Come round underneath. Making sure that all the knots stack up on top of each other without too bigger gaps between them. That's looking good so far. Loop with the left hand side this time. Right hand working end around and under and up through the loop. Left hand side goes a loop on top of the leg. Right hand goes over the top of that one, round the back of the leg and back up through the loop. Right, so I don't have to, well, so you don't have to watch me tying a cobra forever and a day. I'm going to travel up to the end of this leg, just short a little bit, and then I'm going to tie another cobra on top of that, which is about 5 knots, and that's another 18-inch piece of red 2mm, and I'll come back to you then. Right, we're just coming up to the very last knot of this project. I'm pleased to say quite a lot of knots. We've got one more part of this cobra to finish off on this rear leg. Last part of that, that'll give us 5 knots up the leg. Pull tight. Thought I'd just show this last knot. So we'll zip that off, and that one, heat them up. Nice. And the last burn. So we can now play around with it a little bit. I think he's looking rather good. I mean, there's various ways that I can make his legs look good. I stuck his eyes on, by the way. So let's have a bit of a closer look. I don't have a zoom on this filming that I've got. So there we go. We've ended up with 4 Turk's heads along the body. The box knot looking quite good with the red on top and the black around the back. Another couple of Turk's heads on the arms, and then the cobras up the claws. They look quite good. Legs don't look too bad. Got to play around with them. They're overlapping each other at the moment, but I'll get them to a point where it's looking really good. But play around with his tail. As I say, there's no wire in the tail, so it's got a bit of a mind of its own. But yeah, that's the project. That's what we was trying to achieve, and I think we probably got there in the end. So I'll post this onto YouTube. Hopefully you'll watch and like if you can, or if you want to. So from me, from Cord Art, bye bye.